Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you live. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince. In the middle, we have Ian, and on the left is our special guest speaker today, our presenter today, Amanda Ferranti, who is from Long Island, New York. And let's just do a quick audio check. So, Amanda, we have you?
Yes.
Coach Barker?
Yep, we're good.
All right, fantastic. So, for those that are listening on the other end, I'm going to take myself off the camera so we improve the bandwidth. But Amanda, first off, thank you so much for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. And like all of us, I don't know about you, but I find myself being busier than I was before all of this. So thank you so much for joining us. And so today, Amanda's going to talk about emotional management processing and just kind of how we navigate through this pandemic, right, as coaches, if I'm right. So, But first, before we do that, can you just share your journey with us real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get you started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all. Any opportunity I can to share my research and my journey, I'm very grateful for. So I started off as a player on Long Island. I was recruited and played at Princeton University. We went to a Final Four, first Ivy League team ever to do so. After college, I continued to play semi-pro with the Long Island Rough Riders. And I always studied psychology. So at that point, I had heard about sports psychology, and I thought, what a perfect fit for my life. So I started studying that. I got a master's in sport and exercise psychology, and then I got certified as a mental performance consultant by the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. And since then, also, I was a soccer coach since high school, actually. And I decided to integrate mental skills training onto the field because oftentimes, I know coaches, I spoke at the United Convention in Baltimore, and I know it's really important to learn how to integrate mental skills training onto a field session, not only because you maybe don't have the extra time or the resources, but it actually allows the players to understand how their fears and doubts disrupt their playing, right? So soccer is a decision-making sport. And it ultimately led me to develop these 5 A's emotional management process because I truly believe that kids respond well and adults. I mean, I built this based on my own experiences as a player, but we respond better to something that's tangible, that I can almost measure and that I can work on paper and then apply into my game. So yes, that's what I developed. And I then co-authored a workbook for players. It's called Own Who You Are. It's a foundations workbook, and that has been a new project. And that's a very exciting resource, I think, for coaches to help these kids start to develop that foundation of, I guess, mental toughness, resilience, emotional management.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, quite an established background. That's fantastic. So I just want to make sure I got the book right. Own Who You Are, correct?
Yeah, and okay. I Compete Well Media.
Okay, very good. I'll try and add that in there too in the chat box. But yeah, I'm not good at multitasking. Just ask my wife. But no, so and so you also played for the legendary Sue Ryan.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Growing up on the regional team. I'm also a coach. Like I said, a coach for ODP.
Okay.
I'm the assistant coach at Adelphi University.
Okay.
So I do a lot
Very
of
good.
things.
Now, one more question. Did you play for Mr. John Fitzgerald, Detective John Fitzgerald?
I didn't. He was the coach of the Rough Riders. I joined and I played for Steve Cadet, but I work with John Fitzgerald. So that has been a pleasure. I've learned a lot from him through the coaching environment.
Very good. Well, thank you. So I tell you what, I'm just going to turn it over to you. I'm going to get my face off the screen.
Okay.
And then people that are watching, if you have a question for Amanda, please put it in the chat box, and I'll try and pause her and see if we can get that question asked. So go ahead, Coach. It's all yours.
All right, thank you. So I've been doing a lot of thinking, reflecting, especially when this pandemic started. And I wanted to see how I can use my emotional management process to help my players, as usual. And it occurred to me that I think we as coaches might be struggling a little bit more than our young players. I mean, they're actually pretty resilient to these changes, and they might even be enjoying their time. I think their biggest stressors, from what I've been understanding, is the schoolwork and the platform, and obviously missing their friends. But other than that, I have been looking inward and realizing this has been very difficult for me as a professional, and I'm sure, and I know, talking to my colleagues, they shared in that. So I thought maybe I can show how my process works. And as you can see the slide, it's sports psychology. Sports psychology is multi-disciplinary approach. It's a science, and that's the way that I look at this. I'm not a counselor. I'm more of a teacher. So here's the framework with examples already put in it. But as you can see at the top, we all experience triggers. For example, I make a mistake. I get yelled at by my coach. I miss a shot, right? So we have these examples of triggers in the game. Our trigger that we're experiencing now are all of these cancellations and restrictions of the pandemic, all of our losses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, we go back. I'm using soccer, right, as the analogy. And so let's say I make a mistake, right? I lose possession of the ball, which is the number one fear and trigger for soccer players. Just hands down, number one fear. And when a player loses the ball, or in their fear of losing the ball, there is going to be a physiological change within their body. So you can see the picture of the heart at the top. And that physiological change happens in your heart. Your heart rate either goes up or down. Your breathing either becomes more difficult or easier. Your muscle tension varies, and your thoughts can become more rapid or slow down or become more positive or negative. And that's an internal response. All right. Now, as I'm talking about all that, so these three circles you can see up on the board, it's extremely important to build this awareness, right? So that's what I'm going over. What is triggering me, and what is that trigger experience like inside my body? So I just went over the physiological experience. Now we're going to move to the emotions. So you see the little emoji there. It's extremely important, and without citing all these texts, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I mean, there is so much data out there that's showing the benefits of labeling your specific emotions. Now, here's the thing that differs from, I think, my young athletes and ourselves as adults and coaches, is we may experience a more intense mix of emotions. Right. So not only may we experience more complex emotions, but we might be feeling them at a more intense level. And that's so true right now in a pandemic. I mean, I have no problem sharing my own experience. I'm a very sensitive person. That's kind of how I developed all this stuff and came to, and now I'm learning how to articulate it. But the emotions that I personally have been feeling about all this loss, and the highs and lows, have been very difficult. And so I sit with a notebook and I have an emotion chart, and I scan it, and I try to identify, well, what is it that I'm feeling? What is this mix, so that I can let it go, so that I can process it. Right. So the third piece, and I talk about this piece last, because oftentimes in psychology, there's a whole cognitive behavioral psychology, and this idea of like identifying your thoughts and stopping them. Well, I totally believe, I believe in it, and I started my practice that way, but I've shifted now to start more with the physiology and the emotions. Because, and maybe this as an adult, but we just overthink things. I'm an overthinker, just classic overthinker.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I finally learned to try to stop engaging in all of my specific thoughts and pay more attention to what's happening inside of my body and which emotions I'm feeling. So, but here you do want to, I guess, identify these, what I call red flags. And one of the biggest red flags right now during a pandemic is like, I wish I could just go to a soccer game. Like, I wish I could just go see the kids. I wish I could coach.
Yes.
Right? Loss. My analogy that I initially started with the kids to teach them is injury. And fun little fact about myself is I tore my ACL twice. One that was career ending, and that experience of loss, I think, has actually prepared me for what I'm going through right now and what we're all going through. Those specific thoughts, like I actually ended up keeping a journal just to become aware of all of these things going on, like what's triggering the changes inside of my body, what are my emotions, what are my thoughts, and just start to look at it like, with an unbiased approach. And I'll get to how we overcome it. But for now, it's important to know like what's going on for you so that you can actually take care of it. We have to know what's going on first.
Yeah.
So then the final piece is your behavior, your performance. So this is sports psychology. It's performance psychology. The whole point of it is to help you become a better performer, a more consistent performer to achieve your goals. Well, we as coaches, we perform as coaches. It's our profession. It's our career. For a lot of us, it's our livelihood. So not only have we just lost our ability to coach and influence kids in the way we know how to, we've lost our social. I mean, my best friends are coaches. My way of exercising is playing soccer. Right. So I can't do that right now. When I know a bunch of us just feel at a complete loss. And the result of that. Now I've made a list of things. Everybody's different. Just some people are just getting unmotivated. I know the crying I wouldn't even say is a terrible thing. Sometimes that's a release. Maybe just complaining. Oh my God, like me, I'll be honest. Like I have to research how to use social media. Oh my God. Like just, seriously, like avoiding work, or some people just dive and overwork, they kind of like hide in their work. And something I want to point out is I don't know if sometimes I just want to say bold things, but some of the programs, like we had a knee-jerk response to keep the kids active and get on Zooms and do this and do that. So I am an advocate for kids, and I just want to point out, like, they also need space to process as well. And yes, it's important to keep them socially connected, but just really consider what's going on for them as well. And now they're, the latest things I've been hearing are that they're tired. They're tired of having their face in front of a computer in Zoom sessions. So just kind of being conscious of our own anxieties and then how we are relaying them as coaches. And it happens on the field too. I mean, I'm a coach, and when I first started, my anxiety about my team losing, it made me maybe say or do things that I wouldn't normally. And I use this emotional management process. Like, okay, what's my trigger? My team is losing. Well, what happens? My heart rate goes up. I start to feel anxious or embarrassed or like nervous, and thinking like, what are the parents going to think about my coaching capability? And then maybe I lose my concentration and I start focusing on irrelevant cues. Right. So I really want coaches to take this model and start processing their emotions so that they still are performing to the highest quality, because we still have an opportunity and access to the kids and to influence them. And, I just put out an audio. Actually, I'll put it out. I didn't post it yet, but maybe this is a good time to start shifting our focus, and instead of saying, oh, we have to keep coaching them, but why don't we just use soccer as the example to teach life skills right now?
Yeah.
Not basic life skills, but important life skills. Like, I think a pandemic, a moment like this, a moment of adversity, is a true test of character, right? Like those quotes, like the strong survive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just,
Question.
by the way, this is fantastic. This
Oh,
is wonderful. So a couple things. Julio said, agreed and confirmed with you, and that, you were so right. We did rush to keep them active, but we failed to check in with them as people, and, we should always coach people first, I think. And then, Match Day Supporters Club, our one member of the Match Day Supporter Club, Mr. Ian McCallum, said his question is, that first training session back, how should we prepare for it?
That's okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
First of all, my mind is like not even there.
Right.
That first training session back. Man, if like off the top of my head right now, let's just think of the needs of our players right now. What are they missing the most? What are their biggest needs? Social connection. So give them a lot of time to talk to their friends and hug each other.
Yeah.
The biggest thing there. And maybe review. So I was talking to my friend this, we've been saying, like, are the kids going to remember all these tactical sessions we're doing on Zoom? and what I will say, almost like what not to do, is like, try not to put that pressure on them to be like, well, don't you remember we went over this 100 times? Like,
very good.
So yeah, just something to be mindful of, and maybe just a session, a physical session, to go over what you felt like you accomplished through the Zoom, but maybe don't have that expectation. And this obviously all depends on their age,
right?
And what they're capable of really studying and memorizing. But let's maybe look at it and say, hey, do you remember this Zoom session? And this was the topic. And so let's enact that. Let's go through that, and maybe just be mindful of, like, if they don't remember, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because we learn through the game. And that's what I was just about to say, is like, use the sports to teach the life skill now. Right. The game, I'm sorry, guys, but the game is gone for now. Right. Like, it's just a memory and a future, hope and goal, and it will come back. That's why this is more of like injury. We know it'll come back. We know we'll be playing again, but for now, maybe say, like, hey, how do you manage frustration while you drop the ball juggling? How do you build character, when you're home and, with your family or schoolwork?
Yeah.
You self-assess. Do you know that one of the biggest issues with the iGeneration that I've been talking about long before is self-assessment skills? They are so desperate and dependent upon feedback that, hey, feedback's gone pretty much. I mean, you give them as much as you can, but how about give them forms or use technology to have them submit self-assessments?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's good. Hopefully, Ian, that answered your question. I thought that was very in depth and a very a solid answer. So, do you want to move along if you want on your slide, or however you want to do?
5 A's, yes. So this was awareness, guys. This is the framework that I've developed. The 5 A's, though, is the process on how you move forward. So this was awareness. I just want to show this one briefly. It's just knowledge. Again, I go back to Daniel Goleman. There's principles from Freud about humans are pleasure seeking, pain avoidant. And then there's the third principle of Newton's law, where every action has a reaction. All right. So I know I said that a lot, but basically what that means is you can't get negative emotions out of your life. And we cannot get them out of sports. You make a mistake, you're probably going to feel disappointed, frustrated, angry, embarrassed, and that's okay. And that's actually normal. We get anxiety and stress as human beings is because we just don't want to feel that way. My approach is to say, okay, let's just accept that we will feel that way, and let's just come up with a plan. Right? Stop denying it, because the denial causes, or the prevention, or denial, it causes the anxiety. So that's just a quick here. Let's remove those red lines. Let's get our emotional management. And here's where you can develop confidence. All right. Trust. Let me move that out of the way.
Yeah, you do it. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
So I want my players to develop trust in their ability to face their emotions. Most of them are just afraid of feeling disappointed because for some reason I think if I feel disappointed, that must mean I'm a failure or I am a disappointment. And that is completely untrue, right? Your emotions are just momentary feelings. They're just signs that something didn't go the way you wanted it to, or something's happening in the environment, right? That, you know, is uncomfortable, right? It's a psychological fear, not a real fear, you know? So here's the thing. We got awareness. We went over that already. The next step is acceptance. And it's the next step is got to be the hardest one. Right? And here's the reality. We can't get that. We can't coach games, right? We can't have training sessions with our players. We can't see our colleagues and socialize. We can't play soccer. We can't watch professional soccer, right? There's a reality going on here that is unpleasant and uncomfortable, but it's the reality. And that reality comes with emotions. So it's very important to accept what's happening and the resulting emotions.
Yes.
Kind of face it. And the skill that I put in here is deep breathing, meditation, because the emotions are physiological, right? So breathe, create space inside your body. Let the energy move. Emotion, this changed my life too. It's a documentary called Emotion 2.0, and I loved it. It taught me that emotions are really just energy moving through your body. Emotion, energy in motion. So breathing helps you move that energy, and it gives the players, it empowers our players and hopefully us as adults and professionals to calm down and move forward and realize, oh, this is not a permanent state. It's just a moment. All right. And it goes away, as I showed you in the wave. The next step, because acceptance is typically, when we're doing this, it's typically unpleasant. So you want to boost your self-esteem at that moment. So affirmation is next. And I wrote here, ease your discomfort by remembering who you are and what you do well. So I'm not a sugarcoater. I'm not an I can kind of person. I want facts. So what are the facts? Character traits are pretty much facts, especially in our adult life. Like, I know that I'm passionate, I'm creative, I'm smart, I'm determined, because I have demonstrated these character traits for a very long time, right? Pretty consistently. And I think here's where I urge you to really come up with your own, identify who you are as a person and professional, and fall back on that in these moments of difficulties. Right? And the well is something that I talked about. It's basically a piece of paper where you record all the things you're proud of. So think back to a moment you were proud of. Like, it's been essential for me now, because doing this, I've been so disappointed with myself the learning curve with the technology, and I'm a perfectionist, of course. So I'm like, it's so frustrating, and I'm so disappointed. I'm like, all right, what have you been doing well though? What feedback have you been getting? What are you proud of that you learned how to do? And build myself up again and remember these things. Cause you walk off the field, what do you remember? The one mistake, not the 5 successes. And that's the idea here. The next step, now that you're feeling a little bit better about yourself, okay, it's like, I'm good. I know who I am. I have good things going on. You've got to refocus, take aim, like, get back to work here and say, well, what is it that I want? And that language is key. It's not, what do you have to do?
Right.
To do anything. It's, what do you want? But make sure that want is not that it has to be controllable, but it has to be something reasonable right now. Like, you can't say here, like, I just want to go coach a soccer game. That's a resistance to your reality. Right. Want examples would be, I want to evolve my coaching right now. I want to learn new ways of connecting with my players. It could be anything. I want to learn new technologies. Right. So something that sparks motivation for you is critical here, because you don't want it to be a labor, right? You want to have some sort of joy here or motivation.
Yes.
And the final thing is that's all good and well. Like, I wanted to adjust my coaching methodology. Like, I wanted to have some virtual services. but you need a plan. So you can say it, but you need to actually take action. And this, for me, I'm a big list maker. It's just a bullet pointed list with controllable action. So I believe in action theory. All of my words are, action oriented, like, okay, research, research, determine, identify, things that I can look at that list and say, check, I did it.
Right.
And work my way through. And the idea is that when you go through this process, by the end of it, your emotions have changed. So at the start of this, I was feeling like maybe, I don't know, like that the emotions of the epidemic, like some people just miserable, angry, frustrated, disappointed. By the end, you're like, I'm a little more optimistic. I'm determined. I'm feeling maybe confident, whatever it may be. The idea is that you move through, and just to note, like, this takes time and practice. Like, we ask kids to go out, we ask them to train, and we know motor skill development requires repetition. Well, this is the same concept. It's a process, and I've tried to make it as tangible as possible. Go through the 5 A's. Like, I've been years, right? Like, through my ACL injury, I'm going through the 5 A's and I'm training myself. And I'm not saying that the emotions are going to become less uncomfortable. You're just going to develop trust and trust in the process, that you know how to handle it. And through that trust, I have found that I've been more courageous. Like, I'm more willing to do things that I know could potentially be uncomfortable.
Very good. Coach Barker, you've been kind of silent in the backgrounds, but I mean, first off, Amanda, this has been exceptional.
Thank you.
The material and just the way you present it, it's fantastic. Coach Barker, any insights or thoughts? We've kept for quite a while, but
I like Amanda's take that we as the coaches have got to take care of ourselves too, because we talk about it all the time. How can we help our athletes to the best of our ability if we're not comfortable with ourselves? So I think that was a takeaway.
Yeah.
I also think we talked about it in some other episodes. There's sort of one way of thinking about it. We're in a threat and a challenge type. Do you see it as a threat, or do you see it as a challenge to overcome? And I think if you see it as a challenge, which is kind of like the step process, and for me, it's always acceptance, right? It's that anger, denial initially, and then once you've accepted the reality, you're not going to be able to see the players. However, these are other opportunities, or I can't get out and do the things I want to do normally, but these are the new opportunities. So I think, and the thing about it from my perspective is it's not wishful thinking, right? It's not romantic notion. It's not unrealistic. These are practical things you can do. Even a little bit of meditation. I get on some of the websites and find a couple of little ones and just take 10 minutes and do the breathing. And you do feel kind of cleansed, and you do feel kind of renewed from it. So I think we have to be positive as professionals and educators. It's incumbent upon us to be supporting ourselves and our kids.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on the mindfulness, I mean, just I think as coaches, learning about what that means and doing it. But also, maybe, when we do get back together, we can share that with our kids, right? How to be mindfulness, with little kids, I always say, all right, let's breathe like a Jedi Knight, and right. And cause they had it down, Yoda had it down many years ago. But I think, and I don't know, that's the reason why we put it on our grassroots courses, right? Because we just feel like it's really important, mindfulness. And that's actually came from a colleague of yours. I don't know if you know him or not. It's Dave Schneider from Long Island. Who's a superintendent at a school system there. And he said, Vince, this should be in every grassroots course. But no, I wrote down, I was writing. You couldn't see because I put my camera up. I was writing like crazy. Just, the number one fear for players losing the ball. I mean, how simple is that, and so starting with that, but then the whole self-assessment piece. And I really love the point where you talked about all these Zoom calls where we're doing tactical quizzes with them. And it's like, yeah, we got to be careful when we go back out because, they're just happy to be out.
Yeah.
Forget soccer right now. And so I thought that was brilliant. And just the way you phrased it, I thought that was perfect. So, because I know the club I moonlight for, that's all they want me to do are these tactical quizzes. I'm like, no, I'm going to do a Kahoot. And so, right. So we did a Kahoot, and it was great. Yeah. So I think, I think that was a really great point. And you've been very gracious with your time. We've gone over a little bit, but Coach Parker, any last word, or Amanda, any last word?
So Amanda, I've been out to that Long Island Junior Soccer League convention, and I thought that the only place, up until then, the number one place in America, which was a different world, was Texas. And now LIJSL and all the good people on Long Island, they're their own little, there's these two republics, Texas, Long Island, and the rest of America. So
yes,
it's a jungle over here of soccer.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I thought every person I saw, every man was in The Sopranos, some way, shape, or form. But no, anyway, but thank you so much, Amanda. It's been wonderful. And thank you for your willingness to share this deck, and so anybody that wants the presentation she shared, just email me. But thank you again. Be safe, Amanda. Thank you so much.
So much. This was great. Have a great one.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this afternoon, we got Dr. Fritz Edel and Dr. Brooke Candle-Cisco. And they're going to talk about athletes learning English and strategies to use. Right, coaching strategy to use. So it'll be a fascinating presentation too. Thank you again, Amanda, very much.
Thanks, Amanda.
Right. Thanks, everybody.